Hello, Saints. Today in the Revelation series, we begin with that midsection of the chiasm. Begins in Revelation 11, verse 19. And there it reads, "And the temple of God, which is in heaven, was opened, and the ark of his covenant appeared in his temple, and there were flashes of lightning, sounds and peals of thunder, and an earthquake, and a great hailstorm." So what we see is this is the sanctuary visionary scene, the background diorama to that next section of the book, which begins with chapters 12, 13, 14, ends in chapter 15, verse 4. That's the period that it's covering. And whenever, like I've said before, when you see flashes of lightning, sounds of peals of thunder, and earthquake, all that, that's the appearance of the deity. God has showed up. And that's what we see here. And what John is doing here is he's looking into the temple. And he looks into the temple, he sees the Ark of the Covenant. So we know he's looking into the Holy of Holies. And anytime you see the Ark of the Covenant or the Holy of Holies, you know what time it is. It's judgment time. Remember at the end of chapter 9, on the second woe, the sixth trumpet, says that they refuse to repent. Well, if there's no more repenting, all that's left is God's wrath. That's what we see outlined here. And it begins there in chapter 12. We're not going to do a detailed outline of chapter 12, but it's broken into three parts. You have the dragon who is encountering the woman standing on the moon and clothed with the sun and the 12 stars above her head, ready to give birth to a child. And we know that it's out of the nation of Israel comes the birth of Jesus. And he tries to destroy this child, but he's not successful. The child is rescued, taken up to heaven, strike one on the dragon. And then the next part is then he goes after the woman, since he can't go after Christ himself. And when Satan can't attack God directly, he attacks his people. And that's what we see there with the church in the wilderness. As the dragon goes after the woman, his mouth opens and a great flood pours out in order to swallow her up. And we know that water is peoples, and so this is armies of Satan coming after God's people. But the earth helps, and Satan is not successful in conquering God's people. Strike two. And then we see the next part, a little story, there's a little interlude there of the battle in heaven. But the ending that we see here is where he's now angry with the remnant, angry with God's people. And so, therefore, verse 17, classic Adventist verse, dragon was enraged with the woman. He went off to make war with the rest of her children who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. Now we're waiting for strike three to occur, because this is where we are in history. And what we've seen quickly in chapter 12 is a little microcosm, a little short story about the great controversy battle, about what's going on behind the scenes, where Satan is trying to sit in the throne of God as God and destroy God's people. This is the battle of the ages here that's going on. And so with that, since he went off to make war with the remnant of her seed, and that's exactly what it says, he didn't go directly to the woman, to her remnant, to the church. He went away to prepare and then come back to re-engage in the battle. And what he does in chapter 13 is he's gotten his allies with him, the sea beast that we saw coming up and the land beast. And together, the dragon, the sea beast, and the land beast, this unholy trinity, attacks God's last day people, the remnant, those who are left. And so he goes after them, and we know that he doesn't succeed. But we're warned about the beast, not to be deceived by him. And we're told in the last verse that here is wisdom about him. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Now it's very important for us to understand, within Adventism we've used a history of what's called gematria, where you take the Hebrew letters and you make numbers out of them. Same thing with the Greek, same thing with the Latin, that where you can take a person's name and pull all those letter numbers out and have the number of his name. And we've all done this on one particular way based on the 16th century writer Helwig, who used the word vicarious fili die, that this was the beast that we're numbering here in verse 18. But this goes back to the beginning, when in people's mind had no idea about the coming papacy, yet they knew who this beast was by the number of his name. Come to the class and we'll talk about that, about who they might have thought this beast was, or who this beast system is. But it's a symbol. Remember, John is using the language of the past to write about the present and the future. So even this beast system that I'm talking about is still symbolic of the ultimate, the end time. Now, we may be a little closer to the truth on that, but I thought that maybe we had found a different way, a funny way to kind of explain it, and haven't used it through the Bible. So I want to encourage you to come to the class to find out more about this number and just what it means for the remnant church. But here is a call to resist being deceived. And if one clue that we can get from it is this, is do not accept the mark of the beast. It cannot be forced on you. Some people think it can be forced, that you'll wake up and have the mark of the beast. It's a choice. So it's not a barcode. It's not a chip. It's not something they can put on you. It's something you have to choose. Only you can do it. And what we're told to do is to resist it. And the more we know about it, the more we know what we're resisting. Blessings.